one of his new show business contacts, Terry Melcher, about Melcher coming to the ranch and listening to these songs. And, you know, not knowing the intent of the songs. But anyway, Melcher never came, which made Charlie pretty angry. In early 1969, Charles Manson entered the home on 10050 Cielo Drive, which he thought was still the home of Terry Melcher, but in fact, director Roman Polanski and his wife, actress Sharon Tate, had recently moved in. Manson showed up on the property, and a photographer who was there to take pictures of Sharon came out, alarmed at the strange man who was just sort of snooping around the property. And Manson left without a word, but he returned the same evening and talked to Rudy Altobelli, who was the owner of the house, and who had said Melcher wasn't living there anymore. In an attempt to kickstart Helter Skelter, Manson and his henchman Tex Watson defrauded a black drug dealer named Bernard Crowe in, I think, June 1969. And Crowe responded by threatening to kill everyone at Spawn Ranch. Manson then went to Crowe's apartment and shot him in the head. Later, after this, the Manson family held a music teacher and acquaintance named Gary Hinman hostage for an inheritance that they thought he had. And when Hinman didn't cooperate, Manson ordered the family member Bobby Beausoleil to stab Hinman to death. On the wall at the scene of the murder, he wrote in blood, "Political piggy." After this, and Beausoleil was arrested in August of 1969. Manson decided that it was time now for Helter Skelter. I warn you, the next slide is grisly. This is the scene of the Tate slayings. On August, I'm going to flip past this. On August 8th, August 8th, 1969, family members, Tex Watson, Susan Atkins, Linda Kasabian, and Patricia Krenwinkel went to the Tate house and, on Manson's instructions, killed everyone, slaughtered everyone inside. Tate was 8 months pregnant at the time. She begged for her life, begged for Manson wasn't there, I'm sorry. She begged to be allowed to live so that she could give birth, but to no avail. And everyone who was in the house, who included internationally known hairstylist Jay Sebring, coffee heiress Abigail Folger, and Polanski's friend Wojtek Frykowski, were all killed and were all stabbed multiple times, as was a teenager named Stephen Parent who was visiting the housekeeper. Manson had instructed the family to leave a sign, "Something witchy," he said, at the scene, so Atkins wrote "pig" on the front door with Tate's blood. The next night, Manson orchestrated another massacre, this time at the home of supermarket executive Leno LaBianca and his wife Rosemary. Along with the four family members from the previous night were additional family members Leslie Van Houten, Steve Grogan and Manson himself, who wasn't happy with how the previous night's massacre had been handled. The victims had not been killed right away. They hadn't been killed quietly. It had probably awakened the neighborhood. And indeed, the next day, the slayings were national news. At the La Bianca house, they followed the same pattern, multiple stab wounds, messages written in blood on the door, rise, helter-skelter, and death to pigs. After killing Leno, Tex Watson carved the word war on his exposed abdomen. The tape, okay, I already said that. Manson and his followers, who weren't yet suspects for the murders, were arrested in an LAPD raid on the Spawn Ranch on August 16th. They were arrested actually as suspects in an auto theft ring which had been stealing Volkswagens and turning them into dune buggies. They were released at that point, but later a trail of evidence led police once again to the family, and they were put on trial. The trial began on June 15th, 1970. Manson had sought and been given permission to act as his own attorney, but it was withdrawn before the trial due to his violating gag order and other sort of outrageous conduct. As a result, Manson carved an X in his forehead and issued a statement saying that he did so because he was considered incompetent to speak for himself and had X'd himself out from the establishment's world. Most of the other family members followed suit the next day and carved X's in their forehead. The other witnesses, the defense witnesses, the prosecution witnesses were threatened during the trial, and there was, basically the family put on a show. They sang outside of the courtroom, acted happy as if nothing had gone on, and basically made a mockery of everything that was going on. And on the date, on the day that Manson was declared unfit, his permission to act as his own attorney was revoked. An album was released by Manson's former prison acquaintance, Phil Kaufman, called Lie, the Love and Terror Cult. It was made up of the demo recordings that he had made in 1968. Phil Kaufman was later known as the road manager for country rock musician Graham Parsons, and was at the center of another controversy when Parsons overdosed on morphine and tequila in 1973, and Kaufman and some associates stole the body on the way to it being interred, and brought it to Joshua Tree National Park, burned the body, and spread the ashes all around the park. Apparently, according to Parsons' stated wishes. That story was made into a movie called Grand Theft Parsons a few years ago. It starred Johnny Knoxville. I haven't actually seen it, but anyway. And Manson's legacy continued. He remained a figure of great fascination in popular culture. Several of his songs were covered by various artists. The band Red Cross, the punk band, from LA, as well as the Lemonheads, covered the song Cease to Exist, which was the song that later became Never Learn Not to Love. Guns N' Roses, actually not the whole band, but Axl Rose and a friend of his covered the Manson song Look at Your Game Girl in 1993 on their covers album The Spaghetti Incident. It was included on the album as a tacked on secret track. Axl put it on the album without consulting any of the other band members first. Anyway, I guess it was his way of showing how crazy he was to the world. But a number of other people made songs and started bands that were inspired by Manson in one way or another. Let me just show you here Manson's own take on his involvement with the music industry, with Terry Melcher and so forth. It's not that, sorry. Oh.
But that music may have indirectly led to the mayhem which followed. Vincent Bugliosi was the man who prosecuted Manson and his family members. In his best-selling work on the events of 1969, Bugliosi theorized that Manson's anger came as a result of the rejection of his music by Doris Day's son, record producer Terry Melcher. Melcher once lived at the house where Tate and the others were murdered. It's a theory Manson rejects.
Terry Melcher came to me. I didn't come to Terry Melcher. He come to me with money in his hand. He offered me. I didn't ask him. I wasn't knocking someone's door down. I was running from that. When I got out, I was in that. I was already through that. I had that. I had the studio. I went to the studio. I went to Vox Studios. I had it all. And I looked at it. I said, this is a bigger jail than I just got out of. I don't want to take my time going to work. I got a motorcycle and a sleeping bag and 10 or 15 girls. What the hell I want to go off and go to work for? Work for what? Money? I've got all the money in the world. I'm the king, man. I run the underworld, guy. I decide who does what and where they do it at. What am I going to run around and act like I'm some teeny bopper somewhere for somebody else's money? I make the money, man. I roll the nickels. The game is mine. I deal the cards. That's what I sing. I sing, just however I feel.
But Manson's biggest legacy was not his music. It was the fear which gripped Hollywood following the killings.
Was it an intention of yours to scare the Hollywood community?
Hollywood's been afraid since it began. Hollywood knows Hollywood. Anybody that knows the garbage cans in the alley understands Hollywood.
You cannot help this character.
Finally, after 2 decades, Charles Manson remains an enigma. Outlaw, cult leader, convicted murderer, he is the man who most terrorized Hollywood.
People look at you today, 20 years later, and they still have no idea what you're about. Tell me in a sentence who you are.
Nobody. I'm nobody. I'm a tramp, a bum, a hobo. I'm a boxcar and a jug of wine. And a straight racer if you get too close to me.
Charles?
I don't know what that is. Anyway. Let's play that.
Awesome. Yeah.
That was good.